So as they say, all good things must come to an end. Microsoft has blocked emulators in retail mode running on the Xbox. That's right, your favorite emulators such as Dolphin, Xenia, DuckStation, and all the emulators in Homebrew we've covered on the channel in the past couple of years will no longer work, simply being replaced with an error message that says, unable to launch this app. The game or app you are trying to launch violates Microsoft Store policy and is not supported. Now, this news came yesterday on April the 5th, 2023, from some reports I was getting that emulators running under retail mode would no longer work. And of course, I ended up getting a flood of DMs telling me that people were no longer able to run emulators on their Xbox console. And of course, this ended up being true. Now, make no mistake, this is a huge blow to the Xbox and emulation community who want to enjoy legal emulation on their consoles. But it's not the end of the world. Of course, you can still put your system into developer mode or dev mode and go that route, and more on that later. So let's talk about what actually happened here, because in case you're not aware, and if you've not really been following the emulation stuff I've been talking about on the channel with the Xbox over the years, let me give you a quick rundown. Xbox offers developers a way to build applications in UWP, or the Universal Windows Program. Now, this of course can be in the form of emulators, applications, you name it. And these particular UWP apps can be run and installed on your Xbox One, Xbox Series S, Series X, One X, anything that supports the Xbox can run UWP apps. Now, in recent months, we've seen a huge burst of emulators and FTP programs, as mentioned, such as Xenia and Dolphin being the kind of the two main standouts. Now, with the power of the Xbox Series consoles, these emulators have become desirable because not only can they perform at really good speeds, they also offer enhancements such as internal resolution upscaling, HD texture packs, and it really makes them very appealing to use. Xbox has provided a developer mode sandbox for all intents and purposes, turns your Xbox into a development kit, albeit a very restricted one. And this allows you to install and run these UWP apps. Of course, there is a price associated with this. I believe it's about $20, a one-off fee, at least in the US, to get a developer mode license to run or to turn your Xbox into a dev kit. But these emulators can be run and installed in the dev mode sandbox without fear of repercussion. So the question then becomes, well, how was it possible to even run these UWP apps under retail mode? Well, simply through I'll call it a workaround that was discovered many years ago. This is not new information, but essentially when you build a UWP app, there is a way to mark them as a private app. And essentially what this means is that this particular app, which has been marked as private, does not need certification by Microsoft. And if you have a direct download via a code with an email address that's been placed on a whitelist, then you're able to actually install that application onto your retail system. And this is one of the reasons why there's been a lot of people that have jumped on a Discord channel and basically submitted their email address to get kind of put on this big whitelist so they can then download and install emulators on retail mode. Now, this stuff is not new. Being able to run UWP apps under retail is not anything that has been just discovered in recent times. It's been around for quite a long time. In fact, even before the launch of the Xbox Series S and X, it was even going back as far as 2020. Ars Technica reported on a story of one of the UWP app developers basically talking about how they were sneaking their apps into retail mode. And one of them even admitted that at the time, it was something that he was aware that Microsoft knew about and were probably going to patch at some point. And of course, now we're in 2023 and Microsoft has finally come around and decided to fix it. Now, I will leave a link to that Ars Technica report in the description below because it's very pertinent and very interesting to kind of understand how UWP apps run on retail and the reason why Microsoft probably turned around and decided to block them. Now, as mentioned, this is a huge blow to people that want to run emulators on their Xbox, but it is not the end of the world. Personally, I've covered UWP apps on the channel many times before. However, I've always recommended that users use or switch to developer mode instead of retail mode because I always felt that Microsoft would no longer tolerate the use of emulators in retail mode. There is a one-time cost, as mentioned, but ultimately you're getting the exact same experience as you would in retail mode. Now, dev mode can easily be switched back and forth between developer mode and retail mode, and if you basically have everything installed on an external USB drive, it's pretty straightforward. Now, of course, there are more hoops and things to jump through in dev mode, but at the end of the day, the experience is going to be exactly the same as running your emulators in dev mode as it would in retail mode, other than convenience. So with that all said, it was kind of inevitable that Microsoft would turn around and do this. However, there is a practice here that I'm not a fan of, and I do want to call Microsoft out for this, and that has to do with delisting applications in retail mode as they see fit. Now, while it's easy to say that it's their store, someone broke terms of service, and they can do what they like, that's true. The bigger issue, however, here is that people that are paying for games or applications that eventually get delisted for whatever reason, usually it's licensing issues, but Microsoft has the power to basically go in the back end and just block your game or application. And we're beginning to see a more widespread delisting of these games, especially when we start talking about the Xbox 360. This truly means that no application that you purchased and installed is safe forever. And I think the big concern I have here is that Microsoft didn't just close the door on more users installing these emulators. They basically just came in and blocked everyone who already has them installed. And this is a very dangerous practice and something that I'm not a fan of, and something that I think needs to be called out on. Now, the question is, why did Microsoft decide to pull the plug on retail emulation today? Well, I think it has to do with a couple of different things, but the first thing I want to bring to light is a tweet from an Azure developer at Microsoft, Elena McKenna, who basically got information from a QA person at Xbox. Now, I want to be clear that this is not an official statement from Xbox or Microsoft, rather from the words of a person at a company. And I also want to be very clear, do not attack Elena for any reason, because she's ultimately just got some information from someone who works at Xbox as a QA. This person is basically giving us their thoughts and views on this. Again, not an official statement, but let's go ahead and take a look, because there's definitely some interesting things to consider. It says this: "Hi there, thanks for getting in touch with us about the recent ban on emulators on the Xbox storefront. We appreciate your interest and concern. To answer your question, the primary reason for the ban is related to legal issues with Nintendo. While emulating itself is not illegal, it can be used to play games from console that are still under copyright protection without permission, which creates issues with Nintendo and its affiliates. Additionally, we take security seriously, and some emulators require permissions beyond what is typical for an app. This could create a potential security risk, as these permissions can be exploited by bad actors to gain access to sensitive information. For these reasons, we have made the decision to ban emulators on the Xbox storefront. However, we understand that many users have dev mode enabled to run legal emulation. We don't seek to remove this ability, as it doesn't grant access to the retail components of the system and is considered safe. Unlike retail emulators, dev mode is limited to certain functionalities and doesn't have system read-write functionality. That said, we are still exploring ways to allow safe and legal emulation on Xbox. We are in talks with legitimate emulation developers to bring their software to our platform while ensuring that all copyright laws and security protocols are followed." Now, again, I want to be very clear, not an official Xbox statement, just some insight from a person at Xbox that will remain nameless. Now, as to why this occurred, I think it really does make sense. We're seeing these big emulators, as mentioned, Dolphin and Xenia are huge releases for the Xbox. And when you start being able to run Nintendo Wii games, Nintendo GameCube games on your Xbox, and you're running Xbox 360 games in retail mode that were not under the backward compatibility program, that does start to basically raise red flags. So unfortunately, Microsoft has pulled the plug, and it's hard to imagine that they'll reverse their decision. However, I do want to be very clear that these are the types of motivators that spur on hacking groups into action to come up with new ways to install and play homebrew. Remember when Sony removed Linux from the PlayStation 3, the world's most unhackable console? Well, in a matter of months, the system was completely busted wide open. When you take something away, there's going to be individuals, there's going to be hackers, there's going to be reverse engineers, there's going to be people that are interested, that basically have motivation to come in and try to restore the functionality that you took away. Now, I do want to stress, and the final word here is that all is not lost here. Of course, you can still use developer mode. I get the inconvenience, but most people should look at developer mode for their emulation needs on the Xbox. It's not ideal, but it does get the job done. And personally, and this is just me, I have my Xbox Series S and I run it in dev mode all the time. I never really go back to retail mode. The only reason why I have my Series S is as an emulation box running under dev mode. Now, of course, not everyone can afford that fee. No one wants the inconvenience, especially if you only have one system. I get it, but there is a workaround for now, and it's probably the best we're going to get until there is maybe another exploit or loophole that's found to get these emulators running under retail mode. But let me know what you think about this in the comments below. I do think this is a blow to the emulation community. It was inevitable, but we'll just have to wait and see if there is additional ways or other ways to get these UWP apps running under retail mode. Like I said, where there is a will, there's a way. When you start to motivate hacking groups and individuals into action, there's a lot of things that potentially could be found, but we'll just have to wait and see. But for now, guys, we're going to leave it here for this episode. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked it, please don't forget to leave me a thumbs up, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye for now.